Welcome back into the Thomas Fitch Sports Show as usual. I'm your host, Thomas Fitch. A lot of stuff to catch you up with. Texas goes down to West Virginia in a really close game. Daniel Shih is going to join us to talk about that, and we're going to go around the nation and talk a little bit of college football. All that more coming up next. All right, so Daniel, good to have you on the show again.
Nice to be back.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
First time this semester. It's been a while.
Yeah, that's right. So, obviously, Texas loses 42-41 to West Virginia. Some would say disappointing loss. Definitely was. It was a close game the whole time. We'll kind of break that down. But Daniel, I want to hear your takeaways on this game right now.
I think Texas as a fan base and Texas as a team and maybe as a program needs to realize that this year you're not a Big 12 contender.
Wow.
You have a shot right now, but losing to Oklahoma State on the road, I get it. It was a hard game. Losing to West Virginia, both are really good teams, but at the same time, if you look back, like TCU is overrated preseason. Okay. That was a big win. Okay, USC is not really good in a not very good conference back to Pac-12. Lost to Maryland.
Yep.
Bad loss at Tulsa. The only good win you could argue is OU, but at the same time, I was disappointed in the fact that they gave up a 21-point lead in the fourth quarter, and I wasn't happy with that. But it is an OU offense. I can give you that as a good win, but if you look at other wins, Baylor was underwhelming. Kansas State was underwhelming. Lost to legit teams like West Virginia. It's a tie, but you still lost.
Right.
Blacked out a minute. And you lost to Oklahoma State on the road under the lights.
Yeah.
And I think that if you just talk about the West Virginia game, comes down to the last drive. Yeah. I think that comes out the last drive. And if you watch the last drive again, they did not go out of bounds.
Right.
West Virginia, you know what that means? It means West Virginia knew for a fact they can score within 2 minutes and 30 seconds. They're gonna go for two, and they know they're gonna go for two, and they can get it. That is more disrespecting than throwing the flag, yelling at the student section, and everything else West Virginia did. I think the most respectful and disrespectful parts of the game happens on the field, and the last drive was very disappointing, and they actually did score. The scoring play, right? We were at the student section, and I was like, just 11 more seconds. Like, you can give up a yard, you can give up 5 yards, you can give up 10, but just don't give up a touchdown. And they did. And it's like they drew this up. They were like, with 11 seconds left, we're gonna throw a touchdown. They're gonna Gary Jennings gonna catch it. Caden Stern's gonna blow the coverage, and they're gonna go for two. And if you look at from Tom Herman's standpoint, as a play calling perspective, he did everything he can. Right. Like, he called 2 timeouts with a 2-point conversion. Yeah. He did. Todd Orlando, Tom Herman, they did everything they can in the circumstance that they had.
Yeah.
But it's still just I don't like. Okay. The definition of defense is to not let the offense impose their will. You can give up 20 yards, but it's at least you're not letting the offense impose their will. Right. And that's exactly what the offense did for West Virginia. So I wasn't that happy with the defense.
Well, I have a couple counterpoints to that. First of all, you talking about the schedule. As far as going back to the Maryland game, that was the first game of the year. The Texas team we see now, completely different than the Texas team we saw that.
I'll give you that.
TCU, USC, I know they've fallen off, but USC still has a chance to win their division, go to the conference championship. They have a good win over Washington State, who's Washington State's only loss, who's a college football playoff contender. TCU, they've gone downhill, but they lost their quarterback. They lost their star receiver.
But they lost before they lost their quarterback.
Okay. Their TCU's quarterback got banged up the game after the Texas game.
Yeah.
And granted, they were a little overrated coming into the season. But another thing about those two games, those were dominant wins by Texas.
Right.
Texas won by 2+ touchdowns in both of those games. Now, I know Baylor, Kansas State, and Tulsa didn't look as good, but that also wasn't Texas playing as good.
Right.
So,
but as a good if you want to be a Big 12 contender, any conference champion, you're really good, right? And
Right.
part of being really good is to be consistent. And I thought coming off the bye week, Tom Herman's going to address that. But coming off the bye week, you had 2 straight losses,
right?
Which is not
well,
really good.
I agree, but I would disagree that to win a conference you have to be consistent. I mean, Clemson consistently won the ACC the last couple years. Yep. I mean, Clemson almost lost to Syracuse this year. They a couple years ago lost to NC State, lost to Pitt.
Yeah.
Still go on to win the conference. And so I think you got to remember these are young athletes. They're not going to be consistent every week. And not only like this, also again this is why I said a couple like after all those big Texas wins that to kind of pump the brakes on the whole Texas's back talk.
Yeah.
Because while this is a good team with some talented players, they are not. It's not all put together. It's a little rough around the edges.
Yeah. So I started watching college football last year.
Yeah.
When Texas got a 76, right?
Right.
And I was like, what? Like, why are people so disappointed with the 76 record? And it went back to 2015, 2016, especially 2016 when I see a lot of similarities between the two this year and 2016 in terms of Texas beat Notre Dame, jumped way up to 11th, and people are like, oh yeah, we're coming back. They beat UTEP. Okay, good. Right. But you used it's the same as you beat OU, you jumped all the way to like 9th, and then you beat a Baylor team, you stay at 9, and then they started falling off, and people are starting to get disappointed. I see some similarities, and I like the thing that has bugged Texas as a program is overrated fans and overrated program. Right. And Texas needs to be aware of that. Like, we shouldn't be going, oh, we're gonna be CFB playoff contender. Yeah. Even though we're 6th in like week 5 by the AP poll. Right.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. But I would say Texas is definitely the year when Texas beat Notre Dame and they shot up, they beat them and then beat UTEP and were ranked high.
Yeah.
This year when Texas was ranked 6th, that was after winning 6 straight games.
Yeah.
So it's winning 6 straight games. 2 of which were dominant wins over good FBS teams, good Power 5 teams. One of them was a win against a team that was at the time ranked in the top 10, is still ranked number 6 in the college football playoff poll.
Yeah.
Has one of the best athletes in the nation in Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
And so I think there's more consistency with this team. And I think the other thing is Texas finally has a quarterback they can trust in Sam Ehlinger.
Yeah. Just give him what he wants. If he wants a house, get him a house. He's probably the best quarterback since Colt McCoy.
Oh, he's without a doubt, he's the best quarterback Texas has seen. David Ash, maybe you could throw in that in there, but he got injured, and so we never really got to see a kind of full season out of David Ash. But yeah, without a doubt, Ehlinger looks really good. He looks consistent. And what impressed me, I talked about this last week, but his accuracy.
Yeah,
has made a big improvement from last season to this season.
Right.
And I know this may jinx him, but he has that big streak of most completions without an interception.
Yeah.
I mean, he has the Texas record. Last year, every time. I mean, that was the one problem with him was that every time there's a close game, he threw the interception.
Yes.
And so he's clearly made leaps and bounds. As far as defensively, I know you brought it up. Defense struggled in that game, but you got to remember. They were without Breckenhager.
Right.
Chris Nelson wasn't 100%.
Yeah.
He wasn't even supposed to play in that game, but game time decision, coach puts him in. Marquez Bimich, who comes in backup on the D-line, gets injured. Devontae Davis gets injured. That's your starting quarterback. Brandon Jones didn't play, starting safety. So you're down 3 starters. 1 starter's banged up. You're down a backup, and you're playing an elite offense.
That is the most worrying part about this team. The secondary carried the offense that day,
right? Which
coming into the season I was least comfortable with on this defensive on the defensive side of the ball. The lack of depth on this team, especially on the defensive side, really worries me.
Right.
Chris Nelson, Brecklin Hager, Chris Boyd, they graduate this year.
Yeah.
And beginning the Oklahoma game, they put in 2 freshmen. They put in freshmen and Oklahoma State. They put in 2 backups cornerbacks, and they got smoked.
Yeah. Now to be fair, Anthony Cook was one of those guys. He went in with Devontae Davis. Had really much improved game for him. So that is big.
Yeah.
But you're right. The depth is something that I even said that at the beginning of this of the season was, Texas has great starters.
Yeah.
But if they have to go to the backups, there's not a lot of. I mean, that's why Texas was literally running a 3-2-6.
Every single time.
4 safeties on the play because there was no one, there was no backup in the front seven.
They couldn't get any pressure on the quarterback. Right. Like at the very we're going back to the last drive again. Like or basically any time during the game. The secondary carried the defense, but they struggled at times because they had like 10 seconds to throw.
Yeah, right. I mean, Texas 0 sacks, 0 turnovers in that game.
Yeah.
And last week I said the key to beating West Virginia is to get pressure on Will Grier, force him to make turnovers because that's how Iowa State beat him. That's how Kansas had forced 4 turnovers in that game against Will Grier, or Will Grier had 4 turnovers, and so. The fact that they weren't able to do it, and I think the main reason is because, again, they're running basically a prevent defense the whole game, which just lets the team, and, I'm not a defensive I'm not any kind of, football mastermind, so I don't have a solution for what you do when you have 5 starters hurt. Yeah. But, because when you're running a 3-2-6, you can't really bring pressure.
No.
And so basically what happens is you give them a 5-yard cushion.
Right.
You're rushing 3, they're blocking with 5. That means they could double team 2 of your D linemen.
And West Virginia offensive line is already pretty good.
Yeah, good O-line.
They're already really, really big. Like we were down that they're huge.
Yeah. And and this is the second game in a row where Texas hasn't been able to get any turnovers.
Yeah, that's alarming.
And that's how they beat OU. That's how they beat both TCU and USC. They came up, I think it was Brandon Jones both times.
Yeah.
Huge turnovers in the second half.
Yeah.
It kind of flips the momentum. Texas goes on to win.
And Caden Stearns went silent.
Yeah, Caden Stearns. Well, and I think that's just, he's a freshman.
Yeah, but like it's like, well, like if you first come out to college and then they don't have film on you, and now they have film on you, you can't. Well, if you're a great player, I'm not saying that he's not really good.
Yeah.
But that I hope he addressed that Tom Herman and Todd Orlando. Like if they can drastically improve him to a point where he can, escape the film room.
Right.
Right.
I think the hope with I think the reason that he struggled so far is the fact that or struggled the last couple of games. I think he's a young guy, and you start playing good because nobody's talking about you.
Right.
All of a sudden, people start talking about you. You're in contention for, for national awards. He's a Thorpe Award finalist.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the pressure's on. And I definitely think that affected him. He's missing tackles. He's blowing coverages. Stuff that's uncharacteristic of him when you look at the first couple games of the season.
Right.
So I think there's that. But I still think there's a lot of hope in him. Him and B.J. Foster. And, Herman said he's one of the most mature guys he's ever met. He's always looking at film, always preparing. And so I think as far as that aspect, I think Texas should be hopeful of that.
I think Texas is in good hands with Caden Stearns, but just talking about in very short-term history, Caden Stearns hadn't been producing the way he did in the first half of the season.
Right.
And at this point where, you don't deep into the second half of the season where every team's banged up, you always it's football. You will get injuries, right? The lack of depth, the lack of depth starts to come up.
Yeah.
The weakest part of the team starts to come up, and if beginning of the season you go lack of depth, so the first half will be really good, second half will be all right. I won't be surprised, but still. As a fan, still heartbreaking to see you had a shot and then you lose 2 straight games and
Well, and one thing I talked about we've talked about how close that game was.
Yeah.
I mean, literally the teams they both ran 75 plays, same number of plays.
Yeah.
What was it? Same number of first downs.
Yeah.
Texas had 6.8, 6.9 yards per play. West Virginia had 7.7. So almost same number of yards per play. Both teams 500 plus yards. Both teams 2 punts. Both teams turnover on downs in opposing territory. 2 field goals. Absolutely.
When you go back to we tried to call the highlights.
On
Monday, it was all offense and all touchdowns.
Yeah. It was a true Big 12 game.
Yeah.
And the difference was the fact that, at the end of the day, Dana Holgorsen makes a gutsy call, goes for 2 on the road.
I don't even think that was all gutsy, too.
You don't think it was a gutsy call?
I think with, when they gave up a touchdown, they were we're going to get 8.
Yeah.
I don't think it was at the spur. I don't think it was spur of the moment. Like they went to the touchdown. Like, you know what, 50-50 call. I'm gonna go for the 2. I don't like even 50, even like 70-30 call. I probably wouldn't make it because if you don't get in, you lose.
Right. Well, and I think the thing that Holgerson was having to look at is like, okay, Texas can't stop us. We can't stop them.
Yeah.
And so, I think if this game had gone to over, like, I don't know. Usually, you can kind of say like, okay, this team, like Team A or whatever, like had them like. I think in a lot of situations you would have said, okay, Texas has some momentum going to overtime on, like, at home, playing at home.
Yeah.
And so I think that was definitely some of that came into account. But at the end of the day, like, I don't think any teams would have been stopped in that situation. Like, I think it would have gone into a triple overtime situation where the team would have had to go for 2.
Texas wasn't going to stop West Virginia. That's
no,
for sure.
But I don't think West Virginia was going to stop Texas either. And
Probably.
so I think that was Dana saying, you know what, we have a chance to win this game. I can't guarantee we're going to have that in overtime. And that's a gutsy coach. He's relying on his quarterback. He looked over at Will Grier before the play and goes, "You want to win this game?" Will Grier goes, "Yeah," and he says, "Let's go win this game."
Yeah,
and they did it.
And it didn't even look. I mean, they had 3 2-point conversions
right
before the timeouts. Excuse me. And they were gonna score on all 3 of them.
Yeah.
Like there was no. I don't think Texas had a chance to stop them because at that point.
Well, okay. To be fair, if they had thrown the ball when they actually went for it,
yeah,
I think Texas might have stopped because Texas sees obviously they run the play. Tom Herman had called the timeout beforehand, so they had that locked down.
Yeah.
Will Grier then scrambles, runs up the middle, was almost stopped there, and then bounces out.
Yeah.
There's no one to stop him because they're double teaming the receivers.
And also, like, the problem with the reason why I said they weren't gonna stop West Virginia is because when you're like at the 5-yard line, your your rushing defense has to be really good, and they had no rushing defense.
No.
So I didn't think they were. I was like, oh crap! Like we have 11 seconds to score a touchdown. Yeah. It didn't feel good.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Talking about the rushing defense, Texas out of the 578 yards they gave up, 232. Yeah, I know. 232 on the ground. West Virginia averaged 7 yards a carry.
Yeah, it wasn't really good.
7 yards a carry. That's crazy.
That's
to allow like a whole team to. And a big number, like a lot of times when teams are averaging like 3, 4, 5 yards per carry, that's taking into account like some sacks. Texas didn't have any sacks.
No,
so there's no like negative yardage there. But I mean, it was fourth quarter. It was like West Virginia runs it yard. Next play, 20-yard run. You know, Texas just had no answers because
they can't tackle.
They were so banged up.
And also, they can't tackle.
Yeah, it was definitely a poor tackling game, and I think a lot of that comes with exhaustion. It was such a long game and being on the field so much when West Virginia's going with the hurry up.
But also they couldn't tackle in the first half.
Yeah, that's a good. It was definitely strange because it felt like Texas struggled with tackling under Charlie Strong. Herman comes in last year, second best defense in the Big 12, had no problems tackling, and really hadn't had many problems tackling earlier on in the season, and then all of a sudden, last 2 games, they just kind of forget how to do it.
Like it seemed like they had butter on their arms.
Yeah,
like their West Virginia rushers are just jumping over people and crushing over people. It's like me playing Madden, except my players are 20 average points above the other. Like it doesn't. It's like stop him.
Yeah.
Like if I'll get like with 3. If you have 3 men up. Yeah. Right, you're gonna give up like 3 or 4 yards.
Right.
But there's no reason to give up like 7 or 8 yards on a given run.
Right.
Like.
Even when we were tackling them, they were running forward after it wasn't us pushing them back.
Yeah.
And so they're just getting extra free yards from.
Yeah. It probably has to do with the 3-2-6 thing where you have 6 secondary.
You have 2 linebackers.
Yeah. You have 6 secondary players who are out there and. Like 50 pounds lighter than the lead rusher. Yeah. So, but it's just a very bad tackling game.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I could that is why I was like they weren't gonna stop. They could run Texas all over the place. They didn't even have to go out of bounds.
Yeah.
They did not have to go out of bounds, which is like how like with. West Virginia should be the one that's in a hurry and trying to stop the clock, and they did not stop the clock.
Yeah,
they were running out, like they were waiting for the clock to run down.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on.
I'm going to give a brief little injury update, and then we can kind of talk about Texas's state in the Big 12. So we brought up that Hager, Davis, Jones, and Bimage all got injured. So Hager, Davis, and Jones are all questionable.
Okay.
Obviously, Hager dislocated elbow. Davis has the sprain in his neck and shoulder. Jones has the ankle injury and didn't play at all last week. Herman said at the press conference on Monday if the game was today, he wouldn't be playing, but hopefully having a week to get back, he's able to play. Now, Marcus Bimage has been ruled out with a dislocated shoulder, so he won't play. But, going into playing Jet Duffy and Tech on the road, Texas would certainly love to have Davis and Hager back.
Definitely. I mean, the two of the best defenders you have on the team.
And I think it is big that Alan Bowman, hopefully he can recover and his lung can fully recover. I believe he's out for the season, which I think is the best thing now that he's kind of re-injured that.
For Texas.
Well, no. Oh, yeah. Well, but it's good for him, because something
like
a punctured lung. Yeah, that's not something you want to mess with. So hopefully he can get back and healthy. But definitely big for Texas not having to go against Alan Bowman. Jet Buffy's still great, a good quarterback. Yeah. For a backup, really good player. He has plenty of experience, held his own in the second half against OU last week. But definitely makes the game a little less tough than if you're playing against Alan Bowman.
Of course, definitely. Every time you're playing a backup quarterback, they're a backup for a reason.
Right, right. And that's why it's going to be huge for if Texas can be as healthy as possible to be able to get Hager back, get Jones back, and be able to dial up some pressure, force the backup into making some turnovers.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of those, make or break game for the defense. I don't think the offense has anything to worry about. I mean, Sam Ehlinger, your quarterback, give him one. If he wants a candy, give him one. If he wants a car, get him one. He is your quarterback. But on the on the defensive side of the ball, after two not really good games from Texas defense, and against a high-powered Tech team, they couldn't even stop OU with a very healthy defense.
Right.
So. And they're at Lubbock now under the lights.
Yeah, that's tough.
That's going to be really tough for Tuttle.
Let's talk about offense actually real quick before we go. Looking at Texas's chances to win the Big 12. We've been talking about Ehlinger. He was 24 of 35, 354 yards, 3 touchdowns.
Amazing.
Just electric, lights out. And I think there's definitely a lot of things that we could kind of nitpick at with the offense.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they score 41 points.
Yeah. I mean, the only I talked to you about this already. Only, the very nitpicking part, they gave Lil Jordan Humphrey the ball a lot. They gave
9 receptions, 143 yards.
They gave it to Duvernay quite a bit.
He had 100-plus
but
yards.
Colin Johnson, your lead receiver, it's like not giving the ball to Odell Beckham Jr. He had, and if he's double covered, fine.
Yeah.
But
he had a lot of one-on-ones.
A lot of one-on-ones, and he was open at least half of the time when Ehlinger passed to somebody else.
Right. He only had 3 receptions for 47 yards.
I would love to see more Colin Johnson. When you throw it up to him, it's almost this year, not last year, but this year it's almost like, he's gonna catch it.
Well, I think one thing, Ehlinger, I feel like feels way more comfortable with LJ, anyways. Whereas when Bouchel's in the game, he's going to Colin Johnson. LJ is Sam's security blanket, as we saw those 2 Incredibles roll out, throw it up, let LJ just go up and, moss the defender. But I kind of wonder if Colin was a little banged up.
Yeah, they put in John Bird quite a bit for Colin Johnson.
They did put in Burt. And so I wonder if he was a little banged up, but they wanted him to be in the game just to be the threat so that defenders would keep looking to them. I know that happens a lot.
Yeah.
Where they just keep him in there to kind of maybe draw a double team and let other guys get open. Yeah. But I'll say this. As much as I'd like Colin Johnson to get targets, I'd also really like him to be around next year.
Definitely. God, can you please stay?
Him and Lil Jordan, and we've talked about this. I think it would make sense for both of them to go to the draft. I think they'll both be probably at top third, first, second, or third round picks. Colin Johnson could work his way into the first round because of his height, because of his athleticism. But I think there's also a chance these guys say, okay, Ehlinger's really good. I like this team. We're going to buy in for one more year to have a chance to,
do something big.
Either repeat as Big 12 champions or get to the Big 12 championship game for once and maybe have a chance to make it to the college football playoff.
Yeah. But if I'm a player, you're making me choose between getting paid.
Right, and that's the hard thing is they have to say risk reward. If they're given like a top 15 pick in the first round,
I'll go for it.
There's no reason few guys are going to stick around.
There's no reason to not go for it.
There's very few guys. Yeah, big injuries are too prevalent. So I think that's why him not getting as many targets maybe helps.
But when you look at when you look at like Colin Johnson and LJ Humphrey, the amount of development they had, they went through this offseason, get on blocking, play after catch. I wonder what else can they improve on at the college level that will prevent them from going to pro.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Definitely Colin Johnson's blocking. We've seen an improvement even from like the Maryland game where he couldn't block. Lil Jordan can do everything. Yeah. The question is, he's kind of like the Texas's Swiss Army knife, as people have been calling him. But do NFL execs look at him and say, hey, we have a role for him on the team? Right. Because if they see that, and that's why I don't think he's a first-round draft pick at this point, because he's a very unique player. Yeah. Like a unique role. And that's a player you can wait on. Colin Johnson is, this is a 6'6" guy who, incredible vertical, who you're saying, okay, he could be starting week 1, and he can go on to have a good career because
he could be your lead receiver soon.
He's your good outside guy. Yeah, he's your AJ Green, your Des Bryant, who you just throw it up to in the end zone. Yeah. So we'll see what happens there, but great offensive performance from Texas. Let's talk about their kind of the Big 12 conversation right now, which could get crazier. But right now, this is just a couple scenarios that needs to happen if Texas wants to make it to the Big 12 championship. Okay. So one of them, pretty simple. Texas has to win out. Yeah. If Texas doesn't win out, they need everybody else to they need West Virginia to know you. It gets a lot more complicated. But if Texas wins out, and then West Virginia and OU, they play the last week. So if both of those teams win out going into that matchup, and West Virginia beats OU, then West Virginia's in. OU and Texas have the same conference record. Texas beat OU head-to-head, so Texas goes. Yeah. So that's one scenario. Another one, Texas wins out. And both West Virginia and OU pick up a loss before they play, and then it doesn't matter because one of those teams will have a third loss in conference, and Texas goes. Things can get more complex when you kind of get to three-way ties. Yeah. If say OU loses a game before they play West Virginia, and they beat West Virginia, so then West Virginia's 2 losses, OU 2 losses, Texas 2 losses in conference. There's a bunch. There's like a long sheet of three-way tie that we will deal with if that happens. Hopefully it does. Literally, it goes basically the way the order goes. It's like round robin play of like how those 3 teams played each other. Then it goes to record against like the rest of the teams in the conference. Then it goes to point differential. If they're still tied after that, they draw a name out of a hat. Yeah. They draw 2 names, and those are the teams that play. Yeah, but not crazy. Not the best tiebreaker scenario I've seen. No, definitely. Well, I mean, to be fair, if you've gotten past round robin, past record against other teams, and past if teams are still tied on point differential, like there's no other tiebreaker other than like flip a coin. What is round robin? So they choose. So what the round robin would be like is they'd say okay, Texas when they play Texas is 1-1 against West Virginia and OU. West Virginia. Beat Texas. Okay. So likely it would probably be all teams would be 1-1 if it was a 3-way tie. The way the conference is looking right now. Yeah. But that's where it gets crazy. But do you think West Virginia has a legit shot at beating OU? I think so. OU is a good team in that they're going to beat any mediocre team. Okay. Because Kyler Murray is good enough to slice up those defenses. Their defense sucks, but like when you're going against mediocre offenses. Yeah. West Virginia OU is going to be like if you thought Texas West Virginia was a shootout, OU West Virginia is going to be like 60-60. It's going to be whoever gets to 71st wins. Yeah. It is going to be incredibly high scoring, and I think I don't know who's both quarterbacks have thrown some. Well, actually, Kyler's protected the ball a little bit better than Greer has this season. He's been really good. But I would say OU definitely could lose to West Virginia, like without a doubt. OU is not. I think a lot of people overhype OU. Like Kyler Murray, even Kyler Murray, I think is overhyped because look, Kyler Murray is a great, incredible athlete. He's not a great quarterback. He's gonna put up good numbers because he can. The dude's like a Madden cheat when he starts running the ball. He's like incredibly fast, but he's not the best thrower.
No.
And so if West Virginia can exploit that, I think they have a chance to beat them. OU still has both West Virginia and OU have to play Oklahoma State too. So love to see one of those upsets happen. But also Texas has to win out no matter what.
Yeah. But going back to Kyler Murray, like he doesn't throw as well as probably the best thrower in college football, but he's so good at it that you have to defend against that and the running.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean that's why he's in the Heisman conversation, is because even though he's not the best quarterback, like, you know, fundamentals wise, technique wise, that's why Vince was good. That's why Manziel was good. That's why RG3 was good. That's why Lamar Jackson was good. It's not because they're, you know, the best fundamental passers. Yeah. You know, they're not your Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady's. Yeah. But their athleticism opens up the passing game.
Definitely, yeah.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the rest of the season. It could get crazy, but Texas fans definitely want to root against West Virginia and OU right now.
Yeah.
And then when West Virginia plays OU, they want, at this point, if both teams went out, Texas fans
go get your West Virginia gears and stuff, man.
Like, singing Country Roads Take Me Home. Yeah. Grab some moonshine.
But like when you look back at the season, this is not, you know, like the goal was to compete for a Big 12 championship, and they're doing that. But, you know, so I think it's a successful season. I think
it's hard to say because there's still, you have to finish the season strong, and that's what Texas has kind of struggled to do. Is finish
and they
strong.
Will struggle to do it because they don't have they're lacking depth.
They are, but I think I still like Texas can beat Iowa State, can beat Kansas without playing their best.
Tech though.
But Tech again, backup quarterback. Yeah, okay. That's why I say that. They still have to play good. Like, I'm not saying they come and give a lackluster effort, but like they don't have to play their A+ game, like the game they played against OU to beat Tech. Mm-hmm. They just have to play good, and I think they can do that. And Ellinger's looking like the playmaker enough to do that.
Sure.
But we'll see what happens. Anyways, Daniel, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Thomas.
Great conversation. We'll have to have you on again in the winter.
Definitely.
Talk some women's basketball.
Talk anything.
Well, you're our resident women's basketball expert.
Sure.
All right, thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.
It's a great interview with Daniel. Now let's talk a little bit of other college football from around the nation. We're going to do another buy-sell. The second college football playoff rankings were released this past Tuesday. So we'll go over the top 10, do a little buy-sell. And just kind of an update, for those of you who don't remember, I've been pretty good on predictions so far. I've been buying on Notre Dame all season. I've been buying on Michigan for a while. And last time I did a buy-sell, I sold LSU, sold Texas. Both teams have lost since then. And, you know, the reason that I sold LSU this whole year is because I said they have to get past Alabama. Don't think they have the offense to do that. Clearly they didn't, lose by almost 30 on the road. So we'll start our buy-sell with number 1 Alabama. Just give them the trophy now. This Alabama team goes into Death Valley at night against a very good defense and shuts out LSU, puts up, I want to say it's like 29, 30 points. Tua looks incredible. I don't think anybody can stop him. He has the Heisman already. They're already in the Mississippi State this week could be a little bit of a trap game, but like I almost want to say this Alabama team is incapable of trap games. And not just because they're good, but because they have such a good mentality. Nick Saban kind of hammers in like every game matters, and they were so professional there. So you would, Alabama could lose a game and still, because they're already in the SEC championship game, but you got to buy this team to be in the college football playoff. Clemson, I still think they're a little overrated, and that's because the ACC is so weak. And so I'm going to keep selling them. I'm going to keep selling them until the final rankings are released and they're in the college football playoff. I'm going to keep selling them. But the benefit for them is the fact that like they have really one real test left, and that's playing Boston College this weekend. And I'd say it's basically the last test of the season, ACC championship. It's possible, but don't be surprised. And I don't know if y'all remember this, but at the beginning of the season, I said, okay, Boston College, this is a team to look out for, sleeper team to win the ACC. And I also made the unfortunate prediction that they and Virginia Tech will be undefeated come week 9. Neither were, but Boston College keeps trucking along. One loss in the ACC. They beat Clemson. Now they lead that division, have a chance to win out, go to the ACC championship. So, and it's in Boston. It's in Boston College. So, all I'm saying is if Clemson loses this week, don't be surprised. Notre Dame still riding high on this Notre Dame team, and Brian Kelly, he was talking about it last Saturday. They had a good feature about the Irish on College Game Day, and he was like, they were asking him to compare it to the team a couple years ago that got blown out to Alabama in the national championship. And he said the difference is, the team that lost to Alabama, they were a team of stars, a bunch of star players. He said this team's the opposite. This team the sum is greater than all of its parts. And I might have butchered that. But his point is there's no true star player on this team. But they're all bought in. They all work together. And because of that, I think that makes them a real dangerous team. And that's something that I feel like we don't see a lot in college football these days. So it's great to see that. Now, I think it'll be interesting in 2 weeks from now. Notre Dame plays Syracuse. They also have USC last game of the year. Shouldn't be too tough. But Syracuse is the game that Notre Dame's looking on the last 3 games of the schedule and saying, this is the tough game. And I just think it's funny because, at the beginning of the season, if you had told Notre Dame fans the game that they'd be circling on the season is against Syracuse, I don't think many would believe you. But Syracuse ranked, I believe, 13 right now in the latest college football playoff rankings. So, and they're one loss. I think it's just one loss. But, they lose to Clemson barely, And so Syracuse definitely looks like a good team right now. Number 4, Michigan. Got to keep buying them. The defense looks really good. Good win over, and they had the tough stretch of playing Michigan State, then playing Penn State. Handled Michigan State, won 21-7, and then just dominated Penn State, won 42-7. The defense looks really good. Shea Patterson's coming into his own, and so I'm absolutely buying this Michigan team. And the idea of a Harbaugh-Saban matchup in the college football playoff would be incredible. Great to see Harbaugh. I really have always thought that Harbaugh is a good coach, and it's good to see him actually having a successful season with just a couple games left. Georgia sold this team a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to keep selling them. Really the same reason that I sold LSU. This is a good Georgia team, but they're not good enough to beat Alabama, and with already one loss, they can't afford to lose to Alabama in the SEC title game. And so I think they lose that, 2 losses, they're out of the playoff competition. I think the other thing that hurts them is obviously the SEC title game already set. It's going to be Alabama-Georgia. And so the fact that with 3 games left, the title game is already set, I definitely think that creates some trap games. I think this game against Auburn this week that Georgia has will absolutely be a trap game for the Bulldogs. So that'll be interesting to watch. Oklahoma, sell next. No, but I don't think OU's a complete team. As we talked about, Murray, great, incredible athlete, good player, but he's not an elite quarterback. And you add that, you put that along with bad defense, really terrible. Like, OU's just not a well-rounded team. All they really have, they have Kyler Murray, and then they have CeeDee Lamb and Marquise Brown. Sermon's played okay this year, but they don't have a well-rounded team. They just have a couple stars. And so what happens is if your star is a bad game, they're like if Murray has a bad game, OU's going to lose. If Brown and Lamb can't catch in a game, OU's going to lose. And they're so reliant on that. And that's why, I said why Notre Dame being such a complete team is so big. If one of their players doesn't show up, they're still fine and they can still win a game. Now, I do think OU still has a chance to make it to the college football playoff just because no one else in the Big 12 has defense. And so I think they could get by West Virginia. They don't really have – they have Oklahoma State coming up, but that's – that'll be a little bit of a test. It's a rivalry game, but they should be able to get through there. So I think they could sneak into the college football playoff, but I think if they make it into the college football playoff, they get blown out by Alabama. They'd be a 4 seed, I think, if they were to make it in. I think they get blown out in the first round. LSU, first of all, I don't know why LSU still ranks 7, because they have no chance of making the college football playoff at this point. And I think that just shows a little bit of SEC bias. I know that they lost to Alabama, but when you look at it, I mean, they didn't just lose to Alabama; they got blown out by Alabama. They got routed at home in a night game. There's no reason that they should only drop 4 spots from that, and and they have no route to the college football playoff at this point, unless hell freezes over and all the teams in front of them, including Alabama, lose multiple games, which is not going to happen. And so you just got to sell this team. I think it's a great season. I think you got to look at this as an LSU fan. Okay, say, you know what? I don't think LSU fans were expecting to be ranked top 4 at any point in the season, and to say, okay, we were ranked top 4. We're still a good team. We're going to go on and be in a good bowl game, have a chance for 9-10 wins. I think LSU fans need to say, okay, the season was better than expected. Look at it in a positive light. But I don't think they should be ranked this high. Number 8, Wazoo, Washington State. I'm buying this team. I'm buying Gardner Minshew, Mike Leach, the Cougars, to win the Pac-12. I don't think, and what's going to be hard for them is if these results hold out, where Alabama wins the SEC, Clemson wins the ACC, Notre Dame wins out, and Michigan wins out, there's no way that Washington State's going to jump over them. Clearly, the playoff committee doesn't think they're good enough to be in that caliber. Otherwise, they'd be ranked 5 or 6 right now. And so that's why I would say buy them for the Pac-12 championship. I think they're a good team. I just don't think the committee's going to see it, outside of some help, outside of with some of those teams losing. Washington State doesn't control their own destiny. So I don't want to quite say that they're like I'm selling them, because I think they're championship quality as far as I think they'll win the Pac-12 and I think they can win out. But unless there's a bunch of help, I don't think they make the college football playoff. Number 9, West Virginia. You got to sell this team too. I don't think there's any way they win out. For them to win out and win the Big 12 and come into the college football playoff with 1 loss, they'd have to either beat OU twice in a row or beat OU and then Texas or like possibly Tech or Iowa. The point is, this West Virginia team is not consistent enough. Will Greer isn't consistent enough. He makes mistakes too much. They could barely beat a Texas squad who was playing with half a defense. I just don't think that this West Virginia team is good enough to win out and make it to the college football playoff. Last in the top 10, I'm going to buy Ohio State. And I think mostly it's because I want to buy a team that's in the latter half just for parity and stuff. But they do control their own destiny. They have Michigan State, they have Maryland, and then they have Michigan, and they have Big 10 championship. But I think they can get past Michigan State. I think they can get past Maryland. If they don't, then obviously they don't deserve to be in the college football playoff anyways. But the thing about the Michigan game, look, Michigan looks like a better team right now. They have more momentum. But the thing about a rivalry game is you've got to throw all records out the window. Everything goes. And I think because of that, because it becomes almost a coin toss, I think Ohio State still has a chance, and they went out, they beat Michigan, they beat whoever's going to make it from the other side of the Big Ten. If it's Northwestern or Wisconsin or whoever, definitely is going to be an easier opponent than Michigan. They do that, they're in. And I think they have talent. They definitely have a lot of talent. Losing Nick Bosa definitely hurts them. But a lot of talent. The Nebraska game was close, but in Nebraska, Scott Frost is a good coach, and I think Nebraska's had a lot of close games. And so I don't think Ohio State fans need to worry too much about that. Now, I will say if Ohio State doesn't make the Big Ten championship, wouldn't be too surprised if Urban Meyer retires. Kind of similar situation with Florida. Looks like his health hasn't been great. He's been dealing with headaches this season, like his migraines because he had or has some sort of tumor. It just kind of feels like when you look at him on the sidelines, he doesn't look like he's enjoying anything. So if they don't win the Big Ten, I wouldn't be surprised if he retires. So that'll be something to watch for. But right now, Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, Michigan in the driver's seat securely. And at this point, I even though I've sold Clemson, I still would not be surprised at all if those are the four teams in the college football playoff when in December. Well, that's going to do it. That's all we have this week on the Thomas Fitch Sports Show. We'll have another episode next week recapping Texas's game against Texas Tech on the road. Anyways, from the Thomas Fitch Sports Show, I'm Thomas Fitch. Hook 'em horns.